Jake was in the field early that morning. The sun was just rising and the air was cool and fresh. His farm was quiet. Only birds, wind, and the sound of his youngest daughter laughing in the distance. He wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at the orchard. Apple trees stood tall and peaceful, full of red fruit. Everything felt calm. Too calm. Suddenly, the sky ripped apart with a loud boom. A fireball shot across the clouds like a comet, crashing into the far end of the orchard. The ground shook, birds flew away screaming, and the animals ran toward the barn. Jake dropped his tools and ran toward the smoke. His kids, 4 of them, shouted behind him, "Dad, what was that?" "Stay back," he yelled. "Get inside and lock the door." Jake wasn't a normal farmer. Before this peaceful life, he was a soldier. He knew what crashes like that meant. Not a meteor, not an accident, something or someone just landed on Earth. When Jake reached the orchard, the smoke was thick, trees were burning, and one large silver object was stuck between 2 trunks. It was shaped like a pod, smooth, strange, and glowing blue from the inside. He moved carefully, shotgun in hand, boots crunching on burnt leaves. The pod hissed and opened slowly with a soft whoosh. Inside, a woman lay still. Not human. Her skin was pale with a silver glow, hair long and white like moonlight. She wore strange armor, broken in places, and her arms were scratched and bleeding. Jake stared for a moment, then moved closer. The woman's eyes opened weakly. She looked at him with fear and pain. Her lips moved, voice soft but clear. "Don't touch me. I can't have children. I'm useless." Jake blinked in surprise. That was the first thing she said? Then he gave a soft smile, his voice calm. "Good. I've got enough kids for both of us." The alien woman stared at him, confused. Then her eyes closed again and she passed out. Jake picked her up carefully and carried her through the trees. She was light, almost like feathers. His children watched from the window, eyes wide as he brought the strange woman inside. "Who is she?" And the oldest boy asked. Jake placed her gently on the couch and said, "A guest hurt and lost. We help guests in this house." The kids whispered to each other, some scared, some curious. The woman stayed unconscious for hours, breathing slow but steady. That night, as Jake sat by her side, cleaning her wounds with a warm cloth, she opened her eyes again. She looked around the small wooden house, the fire crackling, children asleep on blankets, food cooking in the kitchen. She seemed confused by the warmth. "The peace, the kindness, why did you help me?" she asked quietly. Jake looked at her and shrugged. "Why not?" "I'm not like you," she whispered. Jake chuckled. "None of my kids are like me either." "That's the point." He told her about his 4 children, each adopted, each from a different background. "They needed someone," he said. "And so did I." The woman stayed silent, then said again, "I can't give life. I was made wrong, broken. I ran away before they destroyed me." Jake's eyes softened. "You're not broken," he said. "You just ended up in the wrong place." For a moment she looked at him, really looked. And in her eyes something began to change. Something small, soft, uncertain, but real suddenly. A sharp scream came from outside. It was Lily, the youngest child, playing near the barn. Jake jumped to his feet, grabbing his shotgun. The woman sat up fast, her body weak but alert. Something moved in the shadows outside. Metal feet, red eyes, a soft mechanical clicking. Jake turned to the woman. "Are they looking for you?" She nodded slowly. "They always are." Lily's scream cut through the calm night like lightning. Jake rushed out the front door, shotgun in hand. His boots hit the dirt fast. Heart pounding, eyes scanning the shadows. The barn door was wide open, the horses were gone, and the sky above the orchard was glowing again. This time not fire, but red and cold something was coming down, but slower than before. 3 silver ships hovered just above the treetops. Making a deep hum, their shape was sharp like knives, smooth like mirrors from the center of each one. Long cables dropped, clank, and with them came hunters. Not animals, not soldiers, machines, tall and thin, with legs like spiders and arms like blades. Their heads had no eyes, only glowing red rings that pulsed in the dark. Jake grabbed Lily, held her close, and whispered, "Run to the house, don't stop, I'm right behind you." Lily nodded, crying, and ran barefoot through the dirt. The metal hunters turned their heads toward the sound, but Jake stepped into the open, shotgun raised, shouting, "Over here, you tin cans." And he fired twice, hitting one in the chest. Sparks flew, but it kept walking. Jake turned and ran toward the house. Behind him, the metal feet moved faster. Inside, Elira stood up slowly, still weak. Her silver skin looked pale, and her wounds hadn't fully healed. But when she saw the metal creatures outside the window, something in her eyes changed, a flash of fear. "And rage, they found me," she whispered. Jake burst in, locking the door. "Your friends?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, my judges." The kids huddled in the corner, whispering prayers, hugging each other. One of the hunters slammed into the door, denting it in one hit. Elira raised her arm, and a strange light glowed from her hand. Blue veins lit up across her skin. Moving toward her palm, the door cracked again. Jake held the shotgun tight, ready to fight until the end. But Elira stepped forward and opened her glowing hand toward the door. With a deep hum, a wave of light burst from her. It passed through the wall, the door, and hit the hunter on the other side. The machine froze, twitched, and collapsed. Jake's eyes widened. What was that?" Elira shook her head, confused. "I don't know. I've never done that before. More banging. More machines coming." Elira looked at Jake, her voice shaking. "They think I'm broken," she said. "My people don't allow defects to live. They send these machines to erase us, clean the system." Jake clenched his jaw. "Not here they don't," he said. "Not while I'm breathing." Another hunter crashed through the back wall. The children screamed. Jake turned and shot again. This time the shell hit the machine in the neck, and it fell backward, but two more climbed in, metal claws clicking on the wooden floor. Elira raised both hands, her eyes glowing bright now. She screamed, not in fear but in power. A burst of light exploded outward like a storm. The machines were flung against the walls like dolls, sparks flying from their chests. Smoke filled the room, the kids coughed and cried. Elira dropped to her knees, exhausted. Jake helped her sit. "I thought you couldn't do things like that," he said. "I couldn't," she whispered. "Back home. I had no power, no value." Jake looked at her seriously. "Well, looks like being here changed that." Suddenly, Elira gasped. "There's more. I can feel them." She placed her hand on the floor. "They left a tracker," she said. "That's how they found me." Jake cursed under his breath. "We'll find it," he said. "We'll tear this place apart if we have to." But Elira's face darkened. "They don't stop," she said. "They keep coming until I'm gone. Then they're gonna have to get through me first," Jake said, gripping his weapon tighter, but in his heart, he knew something had changed. This was no longer a rescue, it was war. The night was silent again. Smoke floated through the broken windows. One wall of the farmhouse was burned, and robot parts lay scattered across the floor. But inside there was still life. The children were huddled together, wrapped in blankets, eyes wide but safe. Jake sat on the porch steps, a flashlight in one hand and a rifle in the other. Elira stood beside him, arms crossed. Looking up at the stars, "I should leave," she said softly. Her silver hair glowed under the moonlight. Jake didn't turn to look at her. "You're not going anywhere," he replied. "If I stay, they'll come again." Jake nodded slowly. "They might." Elira closed her eyes. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I'm not a guest, Jake. I'm a curse," Jake chuckled, dry and tired. "I've lived through 2 wars, lost my unit, got hit by shrapnel twice, and raised 4 kids who fight like wildcats," he said. "You think one more problem scares me?" Elira didn't laugh. Instead, she stepped down beside him and sat quietly. After a long pause, she spoke again. "When I was born, I was supposed to be perfect," she said. "My people use science, not nature. To make children." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Engineered?" "Yes," she replied. "Designed, tested, flawless. That's the law." Jake took a deep breath and looked at the dark horizon. "And you failed the test?" Elira nodded slowly. "They said I was broken. My body can't carry new life. I was labeled defective." She touched her stomach gently, almost without meaning to. "That's why they hunted me. Because I'm no use to the future." Jake stayed quiet for a while, then he looked at the window where his kids were sleeping. "You know something?" he said. "Not a single one of those kids came from me." Elira turned to him, confused. "They're not yours?" "They are now," Jake said proudly, "but they were alone like you, thrown away by someone else." He smiled, a little sad, a little proud. "So I brought them here, gave them a name, a bed, a place to belong." Elira's eyes softened. "Why would you do that?" Jake shrugged. Because someone once did it for me. He looked into the night again. And because love isn't something you have to make with your body. It's something you build with your heart. Elira felt something in her chest and a tightness she didn't recognize. No one had ever said words like that to her before. Not her creators, not her trainers, not her leaders, only Jake, a human with dirt on his hands and fire in his soul. On my planet, she said, we don't raise children. They are raised by machines taught by data, tested daily. Jake chuckled. Sounds cold, it is, she whispered. That's why I left. I wanted to feel something real before they erased me. Jake stood up, stretching his back. You came to the right place then, he said. This house? It's full of screaming, fighting, laughing, crying. It's a mess, he smiled, but it's real. Suddenly, a strange beeping sound echoed from under the floorboards. Elira's eyes went sharp. It's the tracker, she said. Still active. Jake dropped to his knees and pulled up a loose plank. A small glowing cube pulsed red and blue. Deep inside the dirt, he grabbed a shovel, ready to smash it. But Elira stopped him. Wait, she said, it might tell us more. Maybe even how many more are coming. Jake looked at her. You can read that thing? I can try. Elira knelt beside the tracker, placed her hand over it and closed her eyes. Her palm glowed faintly. Lines of light spread across the cube, forming symbols. She opened her eyes, and fear was written all over her face. What is it? Jake asked. It's worse than I thought, she said slowly. They didn't just send hunters. They sent a signal to the core fleet, Jake blinked. Fleet? My homeworld's army, Elira said. They think I'm dangerous now because of the power I used tonight. Jake sat down hard. So what? They're sending more ships? Elira nodded. Not just hunters. Real soldiers, he ran his hand through his hair. Well, that's just great, he muttered. But there's something else, Elira added. The power I used tonight, I've never had it before. Jake looked at her. Then where did it come from? Elira looked back toward the house where the children were now sleeping peacefully. I think it came from them, she said. From being near them, protecting them. Jake stared at her for a long moment. You think love gave you powers? Elira didn't smile, but her voice was firm. I don't know what else it could be. Jake stood again and held out his hand. Then maybe love is the weapon they should fear most. Elira took his hand and stood beside him. Outside, the night was quiet again. But far above, in deep space, something huge was already moving toward Earth. The sun had not yet risen, but the sky was no longer quiet. High above Jake's farmhouse, 3 dark ships hovered in a triangle. They made no sound, just a low hum that buzzed in the bones. The children stood near the window, afraid to move, afraid to speak. Jake held his rifle tight and looked at Elira. Her silver hair hung loose, her face pale, but her eyes were burning. They're not here for a talk, are they? Jake asked. Elira shook her head. No. They came to finish what the hunters couldn't. Outside, machines were lowering from the ships again, this time different. Thicker armor, larger weapons, red symbols glowing on their metal chests. Enforcer class, Elira whispered. They are made to erase mistakes. Jake looked at his kids, eyes wide, body shaking, trying to be brave. He turned back to Elira. You're not a mistake, he said. You're part of this family now. Elira stared at him for a long second. I don't belong anywhere, she said, not even here. Jake stepped closer, voice low but full of fire. Elira, listen to me. We don't care what you can or can't give. We care what you protect. He pointed to the kids. They need you now, but not perfect, not fixed, just here. She blinked fast, a tear shining like liquid metal. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever wanted her, broken or not. Then she stood tall, eyes glowing again. If they want to take me, she said slowly. They'll have to go through the defender of broken things, Jake smiled. Now that's the spirit. They moved fast. Jake and Elira pulled out old metal scraps, farm tools, wires, even toys, anything that could help them build traps. The kids followed orders like soldiers, carrying things, setting alarms, hiding in crawl spaces in the attic. Elira found an old solar panel and dragged it outside. She placed her hand on it, closed her eyes, and it lit up like the sun. Still works, she said softly. I can feed from this. Jake raised an eyebrow. You charge like a phone? Elira smiled, her first real smile. Not funny, she said, but her voice was warm. By nightfall, the land was ready. Booby traps in the orchard, wires along the fence, and a barrier made from scrap metal and broken cars. Jake handed Elira a small radio. You ever use one of these? Elira took it gently. No, but I'll figure it out. The kids stayed in the underground shelter Jake had built long ago, back when war was still fresh in his mind. They didn't cry now. They watched, listened, and trusted. Above ground, the first enforcer stepped onto the field. It was huge, twice the height of a man, with arms that changed shape. Gun, blade, hammer, then back again. It scanned the area with a red beam and spoke in a cold, robotic voice. Target Elira 7. Defect of the Veilborn. Surrender for deletion. Elira stepped into the light, alone, her arms glowing with strange blue energy. I am not a defect, she said, her voice steady. I am alive. Jake watched from the shadows. Finger on the trigger. Come on, he whispered. Take the bait. The enforcer raised its arm. A weapon forming, Elira didn't wait. She lifted both hands and sent a wave of light so powerful that the trees bent backward. The enforcer was pushed 20 feet into the air, then slammed into the dirt. But it wasn't destroyed. It stood back up slowly. Like a beast made of nightmares behind it, more enforcers landed. 5 in total, all walking toward the house. Elira fell to one knee, already tired. Jake ran to her and fired at the nearest machine. Bullets hit metal. Sparks flew, but it wasn't enough. They're too strong, Elira gasped. Jake helped her up. Then we fight smarter, he said. Come on. They led the enforcers through the orchard. One by one, the traps activated. Explosions. Falling branches. Wire nets charged with solar energy. 2 of the machines were destroyed, 1 badly damaged. But one got through fast and quiet. It entered the shelter. The children screamed. Elira felt it deep inside, like a sharp wire pulling her heart. She didn't think. She ran faster than she'd ever moved. She found the machine lifting her youngest, Lily, in its claw. Elira didn't shout, didn't cry. She reached forward and placed her hand on the metal chest. Light exploded from her, not just blue, but gold, a warm strong, filled with something new. The machine dropped Lily and shook violently, then fell into pieces. Jake arrived seconds later, panting. You okay? Elira turned, eyes wide, glowing, tears falling. I felt her, she whispered. Her fear, her love. It gave me strength. Jake looked at her like seeing a miracle. You're not just alive, Elira, he said. You're evolving, she smiled. A little broken, a little strong. And in that moment, the woman who was once called useless became their protector. The battle ended at sunrise. The orchard was a graveyard of broken machines. Smoke rose between trees, and metal pieces glowed under the soft morning light. Jake sat against a tree, his arm bleeding, shirt torn. His breath came slow, heavy, painful. He tried to stand, but his leg trembled. Stay down, Elira said gently. She knelt beside him, her hands glowing faintly. Blue light flowed from her palms and touched his wound. The bleeding stopped, replaced by warmth and calm. Jake looked at her and smiled weakly. Guess you're my doctor now. Elira gave a small laugh, tired, soft but real. You humans break too easily, she said. Yeah, he whispered, but we heal fast too. For a moment, everything was quiet. The children came out slowly, their faces dirty but full of relief. They ran to Jake, hugging him, crying. Elira watched them, her eyes shining like mirrors catching sunlight. She didn't know what to say. This feeling inside her, it was new. Strange, heavy, and warm at the same time. It wasn't fear, it wasn't duty, it was love. Jake looked at her, still half laughing through pain. They're all safe. Thanks to you. Elira shook her head. No, she said softly, thanks to us. Later that day, they buried the destroyed machines behind the barn. Jake's oldest boy, Sam, helped Elira pile dirt over them. Will they come back? And he asked. Elira looked at the sky. The stars were still faintly visible even in daylight. Yes, she said, they will. Sam frowned. Then we'll fight again, he said bravely. Elira smiled at the boy. You sound like your father. When night came, the house felt different, calmer, stronger, like a family that had been through fire and still stood together. Elira walked through the quiet rooms. She stopped near the children's beds, watching them sleep, each face peaceful, trusting, safe. She didn't understand how humans could be so fragile and yet so fearless. Jake was sitting near the window, cleaning his weapon. When he saw her, he said softly, Can't sleep? I don't sleep much, she said. We weren't made to dream. Jake looked at her with curiosity. You're missing out, he said. Dreams are the best part of being alive. Elira tilted her head. What do humans dream of? Jake smiled. Sometimes of things we lost, he said. Sometimes of what we hope to find. Elira walked closer. Sitting across from him, her silver eyes glowed faintly in the candlelight. You never asked what I was before all this, she said. Jake shrugged. Didn't need to. Don't you want to know? She asked. He looked up at her. I care about who you are now, he said. Not who they said you were. That answer hit her heart like a soft thunder all her life. She had been told she was nothing, a mistake, a failure, a broken part of a perfect system, but here, in this old house full of laughter and mess, someone saw her differently. She stood and looked out the window. The stars were brighter now. I was a soldier once, she said quietly. But they removed me from duty when they found out I couldn't give life. Jake didn't speak, he just listened. They called me a waste of creation, she continued. So I ran, I stole a pod, and I came here. Jake sighed and stood, walking to her side. You're not a waste, he said. You saved lives, mine, my kids, maybe even more than you'll ever know. Elira looked at him, tears gathering in her eyes. Why do you keep saying things like that? She whispered. Because it's true, he said simply. She turned back to the window, her hands trembling. I can't go back, she said. But I can't stay either, and if I stay, they'll come again. Jake placed his hand gently on her shoulder. Then let them come, he said. We'll be ready. Her voice cracked. Why do you care so much, Jake? He smiled faintly. Because I know what it's like to be broken and still keep walking. The room was silent for a long time. Only the wind outside and the quiet heartbeat of the old farmhouse. Finally, Elira turned toward him. Her voice was soft but firm. I choose this, she said. Jake frowned slightly. This? This family, she whispered. This place. These children, you. I choose this. Jake didn't say anything at first. He just looked at her. The silver woman who had fallen from the sky and changed everything. Then he nodded slowly. Then welcome home, he said. Elira closed her eyes for a second, and when she opened them, something new glowed within her, not just power, but peace for the first time in her life. She didn't feel like an experiment or a mistake. She felt alive but far above the earth. Hidden in the black sea of stars, something else was watching. A massive ship shaped like a blade, drifted near the moon. Inside, a cold voice spoke. Target Elira 7 located, evolution confirmed. Prepare the cleansing fleet and back on Earth under the quiet stars. Elira suddenly shivered, her heart sensing the storm that was about to come. It started with a whisper in the sky, a vibration so soft it didn't shake the house, but it moved through the air like a warning. Birds flew away, the wind stopped, and the stars dimmed slightly, like they were hiding. Jake stood outside with a lantern in one hand. Staring at the dark sky, Elira stood beside him, barefoot in the cold dirt, eyes locked on the moon. Something was coming, and this time, it was bigger than before. I feel them, she said quietly. Where? Jake asked, tightening his grip on the old rifle. She pointed up, just beyond the moon. Waiting, the children were inside. Silent and afraid, even the youngest, Lily, wasn't asking questions. Everyone could feel it. A heavy pressure in the air, like something enormous was breathing just above the clouds. Then the signal hit. A wave of sound rolled across the land, not loud, but deep. It made the windows shake and the floor hum. Elira dropped to her knees, her hands glowing bright. Her body trembled like it was pulling energy from the earth itself. Jake rushed to her side. Elira! She looked up, her eyes glowing gold and blue. They're calling to me, she said, her voice echoing like a song inside a cave. They know I've changed. A pulse of energy burst out from her chest, soft at first. Then stronger, it passed through Jake like a warm wave. The machines buried behind the barn shook and crumbled into ash. In space, the ship hiding behind the moon received the pulse too. Inside the cold metal halls, scientists and commanders froze. She's not defective anymore, one of them whispered. She's evolving into something we can't control, said another. A command was given. Deploy the cleansing fleet now, back on Earth. Elira stood slowly. Her body shimmered like a star trapped in human form. I don't know what's happening to me, she said. Jake looked at her. I do, he said. You're becoming who you were always meant to be. She looked down at her hands, power flowed through her fingers like water. I was created to serve, she said. Now I feel like I can lead. Just then the sky opened. 12 ships broke through the clouds, black and sharp. Shaped like wings and knives, they moved silently. Like shadows crawling across the sky, a voice echoed from the air. Cold. Sharp. Commanding. This is high-order command. Target Elira 7, stand down and surrender. Elira stepped forward, her hair lifting in the wind. I am not your target, she shouted into the sky. I am no longer yours to control. The ships began to fire. Thin red beams shot toward the farmhouse. Elira raised her hand and the beams bent mid-air, crashing into empty dirt. She didn't know how she did it. Her body moved on its own, as if something ancient had awakened inside her. Jake stared in awe. You're not fighting them. You're controlling space, Elira breathed hard. I'm not just defending. I'm choosing. A second pulse erupted from her chest. This one was golden. Pure. It lit up the sky, pushing clouds away. The alien ships backed off slightly. Confused by the power, then something strange happened. The pulse reached beyond Earth, into the very minds of the enemy soldiers, and some of them hesitated. Inside the command ship, one officer removed his helmet, eyes wide. I felt something, he said. What? Warmth. Like hope. On Earth, the children came outside, drawn by the light. They stood behind Elira, quiet, trusting, brave. She turned and looked at them, her voice soft. They don't just give me strength. They make me whole. Jake placed his hand on her shoulder. No matter what happens next, you won't face it alone. Above them, the lead ship opened its hatch. A large figure stepped forward, tall and royal, clad in black armor, glowing with symbols, her face covered in a silver mask. Elira froze. That's her, she whispered. Jake looked confused. Who? My mother, Elira said, her voice breaking. She was the one who designed me, and then ordered me erased. The masked figure's voice filled the air. Elira 7, your evolution is unauthorized. Return now and be studied or be destroyed. Elira's hands curled into fists. I am not a test subject, she said. I am not a broken machine. Her heart began to glow, not just light, but something deeper. A feeling that shook the earth and made the stars shimmer again. I am chosen, she said. Not by code or law, but by love. The wind rose, the trees bent, and the ships above began to shake slightly. The commander hesitated. Sensing what was about to happen, Elira stepped forward, her body no longer silver, now shining gold with waves of pure light. She raised both hands, and the sky responded. Not with war, but with warning. She was no longer just a survivor, no longer a runaway. She was the pulse of something new, a protector, a mother in spirit, a warrior by choice. The sky was golden, not from the sun, but from Elira. She floated just above the ground, glowing like a second sunrise. Her hair moved with the wind, her body no longer silver. She had become something new, something the stars had never seen before. Jake stood below her, hand shielding his eyes. The children watched with awe and quiet hearts. None of them spoke. They didn't need to. Above them, the enemy fleet hesitated inside the lead ship. The masked woman, Elira's creator, gripped the control panel. She watched as her failure shined brighter than her entire army. Impossible, she whispered. She was designed for nothing. A soldier beside her stared at the glowing earth and asked, then how is she doing everything? Elira spoke again, her voice echoing across the sky. You called me broken, she said. You erased my name. Erased my worth. She pointed to the house below, to Jake and the children. But they gave me something you never could. Her heart pulsed again. The ships above rattled, not from damage, but from doubt. The masked woman stepped out onto the open platform of her ship. She removed her helmet, revealing a pale, sharp face. Her eyes looked cold, but something behind them. Wavered, Elira, she called. You have rewritten your design. You are dangerous. Elira hovered in the air, strong but still gentle. I was never dangerous, she replied. You made me that way by throwing me out. The two stared at each other across the air. Mother and daughter, not by love, but by creation. You can't create life, the woman said. You are still incomplete, Elira smiled sadly. No, she said. I just chose a different kind of life. She floated down, landing on the soft earth. The glow around her faded slowly. Jake walked to her, eyes full of pride. You okay? He asked. She nodded. Tired, she said, but free. The ships above remained in place. Unsure of what to do, then one of them turned and left. Then another and another. Jake looked up. They're leaving, Elira smiled. Because they don't know how to fight what I've become. Which is? Jake asked. She turned to him, her voice gentle. A mother. The last ship remained. The command ship. The woman still stood there, watching. You've become something I never expected, she said. But the universe won't understand this. They will come again. Elira stepped forward. Let them, she said calmly. Because this time, I'll be waiting. The woman's eyes narrowed. Do you truly believe these humans will protect you? Jake walked up beside Elira. We won't just protect her, he said. She protects us too. The woman hesitated. Then without another word, she stepped back into her ship. The last vessel turned and vanished into the sky, leaving Earth in peace. The golden light around Elira dimmed. Her knees buckled slightly and Jake caught her. Easy, he said. She smiled. I'm okay. Back in the farmhouse, the children welcomed her like she had always been there. They hugged her, brought her food, made space on the couch for her. Lily gave her a hand-drawn picture, Elira holding hands with all of them, with a sun above. Elira stared at it for a long time, then whispered, I never thought I could be part of something like this. Jake sat beside her, sipping tea. You already are, he said. Later that night, as stars filled the sky again, Jake and Elira sat on the porch. The air was quiet, but not empty, full of small sounds that made it feel alive. Crickets, wind, the gentle hum of power inside Elira's chest. She looked up. I can't have children, Jake. He smiled. I know, but you still want me here? How, she asked, almost afraid. Jake turned to her slowly. I've got enough kids for both of us, he said with a warm laugh. What I didn't have until now was someone to stand beside me. Elira blinked fast. A tear rolled down her cheek. Jake wiped it away with his thumb. We're all broken somehow, he said. But when we choose each other, we become whole. Elira leaned her head on his shoulder. Her body soft now, warm, peaceful. Then I choose this, she whispered again. I choose you. Jake placed his arm around her. The stars above twinkled gently like they were listening. And the earth for now stayed safe. Because one broken alien woman had chosen love, and that was more than enough.